Hey there, and thanks for being with me today. We are going to be talking about iridology indicators that give us information about stress, depression, anxiety, and ADD, ADHD. As we do this, we need to remember that we never diagnose or prescribe. Also, just a reminder for those of you who are watching this as a recording, as a replay, if you wouldn't mind taking just a moment to like the video, drop a comment, share it, and subscribe to my channel. I know that's 4 things to remember. It helps to make the videos more visible to a wider audience, and that helps my channel, and that gets the news about iridology out there. So I really appreciate your help with that. This is an interactive webinar, and so I would love it if you would ask questions in the chat box. If you have questions that you would like answers to, and if they fit with what we're talking about, I will weave the answer into the presentation. I do want your feedback and your comments, and I want you to just really play with me in the sandbox here. That's how you're going to get the most out of our time together. So just before we actually dive into talking about this nitty-gritty, I want to find out how many of you are health professionals, how many of you are working with clients to help them improve their health in any way, shape, or form. If that's you, just give me a raised hand. Or drop a comment in the chat box. We've got a couple of raised hands. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Fantastic. So, not meaning to dwell on the past, but the last 4 to 5 years have been very, very stressful. What are some of the symptoms of stress that you are seeing in your clients? What are some of the effects of everything that's gone on? And we're not going to talk about necessarily that they've got long COVID or anything like that, but what are some of the effects of stress that you're seeing in your clients? Mental health issues. Yeah. Burnout, depression, anxiety. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of those things as well. So we're going to go a little bit deep today. And so I also need to know what the focus of your practice is. Are you a herbalist? Are you a nutrition coach? Are you a doctor, as in a medical doctor? Are you a naturopath? That'll help me to know how deep I can go here. Annette is Ayurveda. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate the comments in the chat box. That helps. Herbalist and holistic health coach from Tessa. Lovely. Thank you for that. Excellent. I will weave in little bits of nutrition and herbology and things like that as I can, based on what we are talking about. It does no good to be able to recognize an iris marking if you don't know what to do with it, right? Anybody can label a marking. Not everybody knows what to do with it. Just so you know where I'm coming from and what gives me the right to teach this kind of information, I am one of 8 level 3 certified iridology instructors in the world with the International Iridology Practitioners Association. These badges, we have to renew our creds every 2 years. So I've been an iridology instructor for decades, but these are my 2 most recent badges. So we're going to just leave those up here. I've been in the holistic health world since, it's been nearly 45 years now. It's been a long time. This is what I did instead of finishing my university degree to be an elementary school teacher, right? I ended up jumping ship and changing direction somewhat, still teaching, but now teaching adults. So over the many years that I've been in the holistic health world, I've written many books that were self-published, and all of them are out of print now, except for the Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology textbook, which is available to my students only. I've also designed and taught a lot of courses on herbology, biokinesiology, prenatal classes, the antenatal labor and delivery preparation courses, because I was a certified prenatal educator for a while. And I, of course, have designed and taught the Dynamic Iridology program, which is the equivalent of the IPA Level 1 and Level 2 curriculum, with added nuggets of knowledge, if we can say that, nuggets of knowledge, with including nutrition and herbology and lifestyle and a little bit of aromatherapy. All kinds of things got woven into that class because I just couldn't stop myself. So stay with me till the end of our class today, and I'll give you a bit of basic information about the upcoming cohort, the upcoming start date for dynamic iridology. In 2022, I was voted Instructor of the Year by IPA. That was a huge honor and a tremendous surprise. I had no idea that I was being eyeballed for that award, and I really am grateful for that. I am also a professional member of the Canadian Holistic Nutrition Professionals Association and the Canadian Association of Natural Nutrition Practitioners, and a professional member of the Alberta Herbalist Association. So just to get you thinking about where do you want to go with iridology, just wanted to share this with you from Kimberly Zadalis. And she said, if you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking. You found it. Judith Cobb is an excellent instructor with many years of experience. She's a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to the field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western physiology medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. And she posted that on the International Iridology Practitioners Association page under the education link, and then connected it to me. And I really appreciated her doing that. Kimberly has a master's degree in radiology, as well as other degrees and training in Eastern and Western medicine. And she has her own clinic in New York. The next, oh, I didn't update this slide. Gosh. Okay, scratch this date. It's not April 11th. I thought I caught all of these. The next start date is actually June 27th. And with dynamic iridology, just so as you know, I only take 10 students per course, because I believe, this is going back to my university days, that we can do more with an optimally sized group, right? And anywhere between 5 and 10 students is a perfect size group for learning iridology. So if you're a health practitioner, and if you're thinking this course would be a good fit for you, and you have a college level anatomy and physiology course already under your belt, that is a prerequisite for getting into the dynamic iridology program, then you can use this link you see on the screen. You'll have to take a quick screenshot of that, tinyurl.com/dynamic-iridology, and we'll have a chat to talk about the course. All right. When we are learning constitutional iridology, you ready to buckle up your seatbelt? Here, we're going to go pretty quick. When we're learning constitutional iridology, and we're learning about this particular marker we're going to talk about today, this is called a contraction furrow. So that is these wrinkles that are coming around the eyeball. Now, other people might call them cramp rings or stress rings or nerve rings. The correct name for them is contraction furrows. And in the dynamic iridology course, we learn to distinguish between 7 different types of contraction furrows. Today, we're just doing a general introduction, a real high-level overview. We don't have time to go super deep here. And so as we look at this, we want to look at the anatomy of the iris a little bit. So if we are looking at the iris itself, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut it right across here and look at it end on. This is what we see. Actually, this is flipped over. What this comes down to is, if the pupil is here, this is one side of the iris. Remember, the iris is a donut shape. So what we've done is we've laid it flat and we've cut it, and we're looking at one end. So we've got one end, we've got the pupil, and we would have a mirror image of this over here. As we're looking at contraction furrows, what we are looking at is creases that have formed in the iris tissue. This, we're going to talk a whole lot about this, but we need to remember that if the top surface, if the front surface of the iris has a crease, the back surface of the iris will have a parallel crease, right? Because, as we're going to see in this next image, when we have someone who's got a massively huge pupil, what has happened to the iris tissue? Any ideas? What has happened to that iris tissue when that pupil gets bigger? And if you've been with me before and you know the answer, feel free to put it in the chat box. What do you think? And guesses are fair game. Guesses are fair game. What do you think happens to that iris tissue when the pupil is dilated? Any ideas? It compresses. Absolutely. It's just covered. Good guess. It recedes, it sinks. Not quite. Okay, so compression would be the most accurate way of describing it. But when we think of compression, we often think of telescoping. You know, like the leg on a tripod where it telescopes into each other. That's not what happens here. What happens here is when it compresses, think of a piece of fabric that's laid flat on a table. If you start pushing the ends of the fabric, it's going to create hills and valleys. Okay, and so because we've got other tissue on the front of the iris, when it compresses, the tissue creates valleys to take up some of this, the slack, if you will. Does that make sense? That as the pupil expands, the iris tissue compresses and it forms these little valleys. Those valleys are what we see as contraction furrows. Now, this is, that is so good. I'm glad that's making sense, Tessa. Excellent. This was set to a very slow shutter speed with very bright light, which of course is going to expand the pupil. Now, the next image we're going to look at is the exact same eye, but it's with a slower shutter speed and brighter light. Now, notice the difference. So we can't really see everything that's going on here because it's so dark. Isn't that amazing? When we add light and we can actually see things, and we see that the tissue has stretched out again, the pupil has gotten smaller so that pulls the iris tissue and stretches it out. Now we can see more things. But how many of you already do iridology and do iris photography? If you do, give me photography or photo in the chat box. Do you do iridology and do you do, or more specifically, do you do iris photography? Give me photo in the chat box. Because what I'm going to share with you next is something that most teachers don't teach. Okay, but it's absolutely critical. Diana says not yet. Fantastic. This is a good thing for you to learn right now, Diana. Tesha says I've been introduced to the basics of it. All right, so notice with frontal lighting, and you can play with this at home with your bathroom mirror even. I don't know how old you are. I'm to the age where I'm getting crow's feet and, you know, I'm starting to look like I'm a senior citizen, which I am, so that's okay. But I've noticed that if the light comes from overhead, like it does in all public changing rooms, right? If you're at a store trying on clothes, that light is from overhead. Have you ever noticed how the wrinkles are exaggerated and your eyes always look puffier, right? Well, if you could have the light coming straight on, it actually fills in the wrinkles. And that's what we've got here. The light is coming from straight on. It's filling in the wrinkles. Watch what happens when we turn off one light. Now we're casting shadows. Can you see the difference here? That we can actually see contraction furrows because the light is coming from the side, not all from the front. If you can see that, give me I see in the chat box. So comparing this with frontal lighting to this with side lighting. Tessa sees it. That's a tongue twister, Tessa. Tessa sees it. Okay. So this is a really important thing when you finally get an iridology camera. If you don't have one yet, if you're still early on, I hope you haven't purchased a camera if you haven't taken training. A good iridology camera is expensive. Well, you get what you pay for. If you're going to pay $279 for an iriscope, you're getting low resolution, no ability to control lighting, and it's a train wreck. You might as well not even buy it. You'll do better with your smartphone, I promise you. But when you get a good iridology camera, it should have left-right switchable. You should be able to control the amount of lighting, lots of things. So when we see these are like the creases in your blue jeans. You know, you buy that new pair of blue jeans and they're pressed and they're crisp and there's no wrinkles. There's the front crease and the back crease down the leg. Okay, I'm dating myself. We used to think the creases were the best. But you know, you wear that favorite pair of blue jeans, they fit so well and they move with you and you wear them day in and day out and you get the creases, particularly in the front of the thigh, just where the body hooks onto the leg, right? And eventually you get it to where those creases will not iron out. That's exactly what has happened here. These creases started when this person was in utero, responding to the stresses that her mother was under, right? And so this little child, as this is an adult now, but as a yet to be born infant, she was already, her sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems were already being activated. And these tell us that she spent a lot of time functioning in the sympathetic nervous system, responding to stress. Right? You'll remember that one of the many things that the sympathetic nervous system does is it dilates the pupils. Right? And that's to increase your peripheral vision so that you can see that bear that's chasing you without turning your head quite so far. Right? And so this person was exposed to stress prenatally. And it's not that she was exposed to anything significant, but again, these tendencies are passed down through the generations. So if we looked at her mother and her father, and if we could get photos of all 4 of her grandparents' eyes, and then all 8 of her great-grandparents' eyes, we would see this trait, this predisposition towards these contraction furrows being passed down from generation to generation. Okay, so this is a young lady. She's in her mid-20s now. And we lovingly call her a drama queen. I'm okay, telling stories out of school. She's my daughter. And she knows this, right? She reacts 10 times more strongly to any situation than the rest of the universe does. And so when we consider that, we also want to consider things like what's her diet and those kinds of things. So, she's a drama queen. She's got a very high carbohydrate diet. She apparently didn't learn what I taught her with, being my daughter. She won't take supplements. She does a lot of junk food. We all know what that does to the nervous system, right? Now, what we need to remember is that the eyes do not tell us she is under stress now. They tell us she is predisposed to responding to stress very acutely. That's what these contraction furrows tell us. They tell us that, and depending on how they're placed, where their endpoints are, how they're shaped, will give us more information about what other kinds of support the body needs, which specific parts of the body are most impacted by these. So my experience has been that when we've got contraction furrows, it does increase the person's risk of, or their tendency towards overreacting, and that they have not learned coping strategies well. They haven't learned how to reset that vagus nerve, take that deep breath, to hum a little bit, to do whatever they need to, splash cold water on their face, do whatever they need to bring themselves back down, to put both feet firmly on the ground. This is the eye of a little girl who was 2 years old when we got this photo. She did such a great job to be able to hold her eye open like that for a photo. Such a great job. Look at all of the contraction furrows she has. Now, she is 9 years old now, and she does tend in some ways to be a little bit insecure, not hugely, just new situations take her a while to get used to, right? If it's something that she's seen or done before, she's all in and she's really good. Her history is that when her mommy was pregnant with her, the father was having some mental health issues. And there was some really good chance that this relationship between the mom and the dad would break up, and that the father was going to go his own way. Now, the mom, her parents lived 2,000 miles away, but she and I had connected before she got pregnant, and we became very, very good friends. And so when she was having, well, it originally started out just when she was having a bad day with this boyfriend of hers, she would call me up and we would go for a walk. But it got to be that we just started scheduling a weekly walk until she had the baby, and then for a year after the baby. And that was great because it actually gave her boyfriend time to get his head together, to get the counseling he needed. And they're now married and everything is really lovely. They've worked it all out. But this little girl underwent a lot of stress when she was in utero. And having had the pre-existing tendencies to internalizing that stress acutely from her mom, from her parents, from both of her parents, from her grandparents, from her great grandparents, is why she's got these rings. So her parents actually have both become life coaches, which is quite remarkable. And they have taught this little girl many coping skills, many coping skills. So now when she is struggling with something, she knows who she should reach out to. She has things that she can do on her own to rebalance herself and bring her back to where she needs to be. So that is absolutely brilliant. These are actually her parents. So this is the little girl we just looked at. Look at her daddy's eyes. All these contraction furrows. Look at her mommy's eyes. So both of the parents have had a history of anxiety and depression, right? And they've passed that tendency on to their child. Now, when we look at this, contraction furrows as a very general rule mean that this person burns through B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. Record speed, you know, and a dose of those things that would help a normal person get through a normal day just fine with a little extra left over is like nowhere near what these people need. They just need to make sure they're getting enough. Okay. Tess is asking, is it safe to say that contraction furrows could need better coping skills in general? Absolutely, 99% of the time. Right? Because remember, stress is not what happens to us. Stress is how we interpret what happens to us. Right? So, for example, you could be driving down a highway and someone could be driving very erratically, weaving in and out, and they weave in front of you and they cut you off. Your heart races, you slam on your horn, you put on your brakes, you're probably, I don't know, you might say some words that you don't want the children to hear, kind of thing. And that can stay with you, that angst, that adrenaline rush for the entire time you're on that freeway till you can get off the freeway onto a more calm road. But if you had the coping skills, you could look at it, you could, you'd have that initial rush. And then you go, oh, okay, he's in front of me. I can see what he's doing now. I'm just going to stay back behind him where I can see what he's doing so that I don't get into trouble with him. Right? And you can do that kind of thought process instead of thinking they're out to get me, I'm going to die, you know, we're all going to die kind of thing. You can take that step back and go, okay, no, I see the danger very clearly, and I can stay away from it. And that would be a great coping skill, right? And so, yeah, coping skills are typically really beneficial here, which is what both of the parents have learned by doing their life coaching. They've learned coping skills. So this is a little 2-year-old girl. She is a 3rd generation client for me. I took care of her grandma and her mummy. Her grandma for many years, and then her mummy when her mummy was getting ready to get pregnant, and then through the pregnancy, and I still see this family. They're such a lovely family. So the mom came in with this little girl, and she said, I don't know what to do with her. I said, tell me what's going on. And she said, she's having meltdowns. She used to be the sweetest little 2-year-old. And now I'm telling you, if she's lost her stuffy, or she's lost her blankie, or she's lost something that she really wants, there is nothing that will calm her down. She will scream for 8 hours nonstop, and she won't even just fall asleep. She just keeps going. We can't distract her. We found nothing. We've tried, throwing her into a cold shower. We've tried cuddling her and hugging her and singing to her and reading to her and playing with her and trying to distract her. Nothing works. She just goes. And so when I got these little photos of her eyes, and I noticed she's got all these contraction furrows. Remember, B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. Now, this family has an amazing diet. Mom has written a best-selling cookbook. Food is cooked from scratch. It's organic. So good. But I see these contraction furrows. And so I suggested to the mom, your diet is brilliant. It really is. And I know you're doing an amazing job. And these kids didn't get fizzy drinks and chocolate bars and things like that. They got healthy sweets. Like they would get organic chocolate sweetened with stevia kind of thing if there was going to be chocolate, for example, right? And so I said to the mom, what we need to remember here is that in spite of having such a really high quality diet, and in spite of how conscientious you are being, and you are being very conscientious, your daughter has a much higher need for the B vitamins especially. And so we got some liquid B vitamins and started giving them to her. Literally just a little, whatever the dose was every day. I don't remember how much we used, but literally within less than a week, I got an email back from the mom saying, oh, wow, thank you. Thank you. That worked so well. She's happy to take these supplements. She actually asks for them. Children know. They know when something's not right, right? And if we can help to figure out what it is that's not right, we can help balance it and teach them what they can do to keep themselves in balance. And so we ended the screaming tantrums completely, totally done, over, no more. Her mom just loves giving them to her. The daughter loves taking them. And now that she's older, she would be about 8 now. Now that she's older, they look ahead at the day. What does the day look like? If it's a very busy day going lots of different directions, daughter gets a little extra B vitamins. If it's a day where we're just going to stay home and putz around the garden and just have a nice relaxing day of nothing major happening, then maybe daughter needs a little less of the B vitamins. Remember, this doesn't show us there's a deficiency. It only shows us that this person has a tendency to burn through their B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium very, very quickly. So we really need to know the nutritional status of the person before we start throwing remedies at them, right? We need to know what their diet is like, what their lifestyle is like, what kind of stressors they have, what's going on in their life. So, so important. Oh, here's another comment from a student, Karen Choate. Judith has been one of the teachers who's made a difference in my life. She's a born teacher, meaning she has incredible knowledge to share in her field of expertise, patience with her students, whether you are completely new to the field or a person who has taken iridology courses with other teachers, and most importantly, the passion to ensure all of her students are well-versed, comfortable with what they have learned, and are poised for success. Judith has always been generous with her time and is always willing to discuss any questions that I occasionally have had with unusual cases in my practice. I began implementing what I had learned in her course into my practice before I had even finished her classes, and it has been an invaluable tool in my office. I cannot say enough about Judith and any course that she teaches. If you are considering iridology, look no further. Karen has been with me for about 6 or 7 years now. So grateful to her for that. Okay, so how's it going? Any questions? Any questions? We're going to dive into another case here. This is a young boy. He was 10 years old when he came to see me for the first time, and very unusual in that both his mother and his father came to every appointment, which was very unusual. Usually it's one parent that brings the children, but in this case, it was both. He was in the process of being assessed by the school psychologist and the medical doctor for ADD, ADHD. And so just asking you a question based on your expertise, what do you recommend to your clients who have nervous system imbalances, where you can see they're stressed, where you can see they're not handling things well, or maybe they've got anxiety or depression or whatever going on? What are the kinds of things that you recommend? Are there vitamins that you're recommending, or herbs, or lifestyle things, or other coping skills? I'd love to see the kinds of things you recommend. Tessa says magnesium and meditation. Good suggestions. Who else has things that they like to work with when they're working with the nervous system? Adaptogens, Annette, good answer. Yes. And a routine in the day. That's especially important when we're working with someone who's got ADD or ADHD, right? The routine and the adaptogen, so important. So this young man, again, he comes from a very loving, intact family. The parents are engaged, but they're not helicopter parents by any stretch of the imagination. They just both believe that it takes 2 parents to raise a child. So there's 2 children in the family, And it works very well for them, which is brilliant. And it would work well for most people, right? To have two caring parents raising the children together. And so with this young man, we needed to do a bunch of dietary work with him. While the diet was really very much a North American kind of diet. Breakfast would be boxed cereal or white flour pancakes with pancake syrup. Lunch would be processed meat, because he would take his lunch to school. We don't have a school lunch program here. He would take his lunch to school, so it'd be white bread, processed meat, processed cheese, a fruit roll-up, a drinking box. So nothing that was real food. Supper, the kids were busy, so supper was either drive-through, got to get them to their practices on time, or it would often be pasta, white pasta, right? And so as far as it goes, if you're working with a standard North American diet, it wasn't bad. I mean, at least they were getting 3 meals a day, right? But we had to do some work because none of that would support the nervous system well. So with this, we started with breakfast, with making sure there was protein at breakfast, and we switched everything to whole grain, which was pretty easy. You can get really nice whole grain pancake mixes, and we got him onto real maple syrup. So that was an easy switch. We redid his lunches and got him to where it was multi-grain breads, because he doesn't have any issues with gluten, with high quality meats, like leftovers from the night before. If they had a roasted chicken, he would have a chicken sandwich. If they had a roast beef, he would have a beef sandwich. And we got rid of the processed sandwich meats, got him to have a piece of fruit instead of fruit roll-ups. And we got him to have got him a really snazzy water bottle, so that he would have water at lunch instead of a sugar-laden, yucky colored beverage thing, right? Got him to have a protein snack after school, got them, mom and dad, to just organize a little bit more, really help them to understand the benefits of a slow cooker, right? So that they would think in advance, what are we going to have for supper tomorrow? Okay, so that means these things need to be in the slow cooker, or this needs to be in the oven on time bake, or things like that. So that supper was now protein and veggies, lots of veggies, heavy on the veggies, right? And we started to see some good results. I see indications. We did use with him things like omega-3. We use lemon balm or chamomile, right, as a supplement, as a tea with him, again, to settle the nervous system a little bit. There's suggestions here that his liver may want to be out of balance, not that we can see that it is, but that it's predisposed. So we might want to support that, because the liver uses the carbs to make cholesterol that makes the neurotransmitters that help to balance out the nervous system, right? So we maybe need to go back as far as the liver here and stop working just symptomatically. We also need to make sure that his liver is doing phase 1, phase 2 detox really well, so that he's offloading the different toxins, right? What else do we have here? Fantastic. We used to say that you need 3 complete rings going around, and that would mean a nervous breakdown. And that's just garbage. If you've heard that before, you can throw that out. That's old information. It's been disproved. We don't use that anymore. So with this young man, we actually did some really good work. With the diet work and with the supplements, we did some liquid B vitamins. We did a really good omega-3 with him. We did some liquid minerals with him. He was doing so well. His attention span, literally, his mother had ways of measuring his attention span and how well he could focus. We increased his attention span from, if we've got 1 unit, up to 2.5 units of time, that he could pay attention, stay focused, stay engaged, which is absolutely brilliant. It broke my heart when he was going into what we call junior high, which starts with the 7th grade here. His mom reached out to me. I had reached out and said, hey, you ready for some refills for your son? And she said, oh, we've decided not to continue. It's like, oh my goodness. She said, yeah, he's going into junior high. That's where education becomes super critical. We've decided to put him on Ritalin because we don't want to compromise his education. And I just about cried, made me so sad. Susan says that other things that she does with ADD, ADHD, with nervous system, with anxiety, depression, breath work and yoga, adaptogenic mushrooms. Yeah, so good, right? Chaga and turkey tail, things like that. Lion's mane, meditation, brain waves, and binaural beats. Fantastic. Love that. So good. So good. Selena McKenzie, another one of my students, said, I wanted to take a moment of your time and just put a huge thank you out there. I've been learning so much in the first few weeks of class, and it's been a true blessing. As an educator in my field of study, I feel as though I've taken so many continued education courses, and I really appreciate your detailed course. I particularly enjoy being able to review the mini videos throughout my busy work week. I've always learned best by audio and really feel that it's the glue in your course for me. I'm super excited to see what's in store in the coming weeks. I'm so looking forward to being able to build this amazing process into my practice. I think it'll be well received by all of my clients, young and old. Fantastic. I have to say, I really like it when my students say nice things, and they say a lot of nice things. I can't possibly share them all with you. We'd be here for a month of Sundays. Here again, we have another beautiful example of contraction furrows. This one is a little bit different. This is a woman who was going through a lot, and she had gone through a lot, and it wasn't going to end anytime soon. When we can see these contraction furrows with the frontal lighting, remember how that first example, when we saw the frontal lighting, we couldn't see the contraction furrows. We had to turn off one light so that we could cast shadows to see the contraction furrows. Well, if we can see the contraction furrows with frontal lighting, you got to know they're deep. They're permacreased. They're there for good. They've been there since before she was born, passed down through the generations, right? Now, this was a client who was at this point in time was in her early 40s. She had a lot of stress in her life. Over the past about 15 years, she had had on again, off again diagnoses from the medical doctor that she had MS. Oh, no, you don't. Just kidding. Oh, yeah, you do. There's the lesion. Oh, no, you don't. Just kidding. She had symptoms, but they couldn't seem to decide which way they wanted to go with this. And so she really struggled. Now, there's a lot of other markings here that give us information about why her nervous system might be imbalanced besides that predisposition to it. Other things that might impact the nervous system. That's one of the things we really focus on in dynamic iridology, is looking to see how many markings point in one direction. How do the markings modify each other to build the story for us? So just before we did this, she had no idea her marriage was on the rocks. She had gone away for a couple of days, and when she came home, her husband had taken the children and they'd moved out. Right? It's like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So tons of stress. And again, we worked with her really hard. We did a lot of emotional work. I did a lot of tapping with her, did a lot of flower essences, did a lot of aromatherapy. And of course, we did the nutritional support as well. So important. And with her, we needed to do digestive support. Here's a 24-year-old male. He has a long history of anxiety and depression. He's been on and off anti-anxiety and antidepressants since he was 15. It's an extremely poor diet, very high in refined carbs, very lazy, sedentary lifestyle, no physical activity whatsoever. Having said that, he's a very smart young man. He decided about 6 years ago he was going to go into insurance, and he did. And he's in those 6 short years, he's climbed his way up to managerial positions. So he's really doing he's smart, right? He's got it. He just doesn't understand his body. Tess is saying, my teen son has contraction furrows that are very prominent, could almost see them in the dark. So Tessa, you're gaining a deeper understanding now of how your son is put together. With this fellow that's on the screen now, remember, the eyes don't tell us that he's under stress right now. They tell us he's got the predisposition to internalizing his stress at a very acute level. They tell us where and how the body will need support when it's under stress. And I typically, when I see these contraction furrows, I want to be doing daily maintenance work here. I want to have a good foundation already in place so that when this person gets slammed against the wall, because life does that, that he will have that foundation that we can quickly add on to so that he doesn't tank and hit rock bottom, right? So again, we need to know where the contraction furrows, if we want to get specific, we need to know where they're placed. We need to know where the endpoints are. We need to know if they have unusual shapes to them. And that's going to give us a much deeper understanding. Again, this young man has a really awful diet, 2 liters or 2 quarts of fizzy beverages a day. He's Filipino. They tend to have a very high carbohydrate, high refined carbohydrate, low nutrient diet. As a result, to add to all of this, all of his relatives who are back in the Philippines, all of his relatives who are a generation older than him, have died by the time they're 60. And he is now saying, I'll be dead by the time I'm 60. And he doesn't understand. I'm having problems getting him to understand that he has some say in this. And he's not a client. He's actually one of my sons-in-law. And just trying to get him to understand that what he's doing now will have an impact later. It's not lining up for him. So when we see these, we know, again, the B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. There are other markings here that give us indications as to other things that we can do that will help the whole system to work better as an integrated whole, not just working with the nervous system, but working with all of the other systems that have an impact on the nervous system. So important. And again, those are some of the details we work with as we're practicing in the dynamic iridology program. How are you doing with this? Is this all making sense? If it is, give me a makes sense in the comments box. All right, so Diane is saying yes. Thank you, Diane. I really appreciate that. Anybody else? Have I lost you somewhere? Susanna says it makes sense with an exclamation point. Like that one. Thank you for that, Susanna. So just going to take just a minute here to talk about the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program. It is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths, anyone who's got a college-level anatomy and physiology course already under their belt. If you're working with clients and you've got that A&P, or you want to work with clients and you've already got the A&P, then this course is for you. I used to accept anybody who wanted to enroll, and I stopped doing that as I realized that when people don't have that A&P course already under their belt, they get lost in the course. I go way deeper with the physiology connections than any other iridology teacher does, and I know that. I know that because I've had several students come to me who were already IPA certified, and they said, yeah, I could give back facts on a test to get my certification, but I don't know how to use this. And so they came and they paid the tuition and joined us for the course so that they could relearn everything that already learned, but then learn how to take it to a deeper level and integrate everything. You want to do that because if you're not doing that, you're going to be wasting time. You're going to do an iris assessment the way they were taught when they didn't know how to integrate it. And that's making a list of every mark you see, then a list of every problem that could create, then a list of every possible solution. Total waste of time. What I teach my students to do is how to draw out the important markers for what the client is concerned with. Then how do you create, how does that help you to ask the right questions to give you the best information to create the best protocol? And rather than doing those long lists on your own unpaid time, you're creating everything when you're with your client in your paid sessions. So it's much faster, much more precise, much more useful. We don't want to overwhelm our clients, and we do want them to keep coming back. We want them to keep coming back. We want long-term retention. We want their trust, and we want to be able to get the results for them that will make them want to come back. That's why I've got 3rd generation clients now. So we've got Tessa saying, I don't understand how the contraction furrows can be placed differently. You said pay attention to where they're placed and where they start and where they end, but don't take up too much time on my account by any means. Oh, thank you for that, Tessa. Well, in every eye we looked at, the contraction furrows started and ended at different places. There were different layers of them. There were different shapes of them. And so again, when we're looking at an eye photo in the context of what the client has asked for help with, we then know which aspects of the contraction furrows we need to look at. We understand if there's a specific sector of the eye we need to focus on, right? And that all guides the questions. And that's what we practice in the dynamic iridology course, is how do you apply this? How do you know what to pay attention to and what to leave for another time, right? Layers of depth, layers of depth. No one marker gives us all the information we need. So we need to add markers. And as we add layers of information, we actually don't broaden out our understanding. We laser focus it, so that each layer of information we add, from the basic constitution to the structure to the constitutional subtypes, then to individual markings, is helping to narrow down our understanding of exactly what the client needs help with right now. So that not understanding, that's the whole purpose of the course, right? So the next live course starts on June 27th. I updated this slide, go me. There will also be an info webinar on June 4th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's just next week. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that Tuesday? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's Tuesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So with that, if you'd like to come to the info course to learn more about the course and about, that's not where I meant to send that. I meant to send that there. Just a moment. Learn more about the course, about what's included, about what kind of support you get, how long does that support last, how do I help you prepare for certification, what are the learning materials you have access to. All of that information is what we will talk about in this info session next week. So if you're already thinking, yeah, I actually just want the course, I just know I already want the course, then get in touch with me. And I should have that link here, but I don't have it right in front of me for some reason. You can do it through, I can give you a link. Let me get this right in. You get some of the basic information about the course in that link that I've just posted, iridology.education/course-info. So that's in your chat box. And in there, there's also a link for you to reach out to me to speak with me personally about the course if you've got your anatomy and physiology already under your belt. All right. Joyce Lee, another one of my grads, a clinical aromatherapist, said, I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in the material or my abilities to perform an accurate assessment. Judith Cobb, on the other hand, is a wonderful instructor. She presents the material in this course in a concise, organized way. She clearly answers every question asked, no matter how trivial the student may think it is. Judith structures the classes in a way that makes them incredibly interesting. Clarification is clearly established through her instruction, discussion, and student participation. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel very confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my clients. This course is an incredible value, highly recommended. All right, so there we have it today. That's what I've prepared for you. Any other questions before we wrap it up for the time being? Give everybody just a second in case there's someone typing madly to send in another comment. Again, with only accepting 10 students per course, and the only way you can enroll in the course is by having a chat with me one-on-one. Use that second link I've given you if you know you want to take the course sooner rather than later, and schedule a time and let's talk. Let's see if this is the right course, if it's the best fit for you, if it's the right time for you. And we'll see about whether it's the right time to get you enrolled for the June 27th start date. Diana says, thank you. You are most welcome, Diana. All righty. Well, it looks like that's the only final comment coming in. So thank you so much for being with me today. Tessa says, this was great. Thank you so much. You do, just let me read that. Thank you so much. You do an amazing job of being comprehensive. I've already learned so much from you, and I'm not even a student. Oh, Tessa, one of these days you'll be a student, right? You'll be with us. And Annette, you are most welcome. Thank you for being with us today. I look forward to seeing you each very soon. Take good care and bye for now.